The new higher education funding model has run into headwinds after the Kenya Human Rights Commission, Elimu Bora Working Group and the Students' Caucus moved to court seeking to stop its implementation. The petitioners argue that the model was rushed and did not consider the plight of candidates who sat the exam in 2022 and who are now likely to be locked out of accessing higher education. They also questioned the use of the means testing instrument used to determine the category a student will be placed to know how much funding they will receive, arguing that the categories were likely to lock out students whose backgrounds were not explicit. Chemutai Goin has more.
With the government still engaged in the process of categorizing first-year students who joined institutions of higher learning to determine their funding category as the new higher education funding model kicks in, a case has been filed in court seeking to slam the brakes on its implementation. Terming the funding model as arbitrary, obscure, expensive, undefined and a violation of the law, the Kenya Human Rights Commission, Elimu Bora Working Group and the Students' Caucus comprising student leaders from various institutions are pleading with the court to hold its implementation, arguing that it will lock out many students from benefiting from the sponsorship. The lobby groups also took particular issue with the requirement that an applicant must have attained the age of 18 years, which then will leave out many students who completed high school earlier. They also note that the means testing instrument used to categorize students into vulnerable, extremely needy, and less needy groups was discriminatory to students whose backgrounds did not automatically fall into any of the four. In the papers filed in court, the lobby groups voiced the concerns of many educationists who have questioned the rushed implementation of the funding model without consulting those that will be affected by the changes. For instance, they faulted the president for announcing the new funding model without considering the candidates who sat their exams last year and whom many are now struggling to quench their thirst for higher education. In advocating for stoppage of the implementation, they faulted the players in the education sector for advancing proposals that were making tertiary education more costly by leaving the bulk of the payments to parents and students instead of subsidizing the cost. President William Ruto, while attending Sunday worship in Dagoretti Sunday, continued championing the funding model, saying it will level the playing field for students.
Kuna viongozi nimesikia wanasema sasa hii model imesema ati watoto walipe pesa katika university. Mimi nataka niwaambie hawa viongozi, wale watu nimesema walipe pesa kiasi kidogo pale university ni watoto wa hawa viongozi na sisi ambaye tuko na mshahara hapa. Si ndio? Sisi tuko na mshahara tulipe. Na sio pesa nyingi, tumesema kwa semester moja lipa 25,000. Kwa huyo mtoto ambaye ulikuwa unalipa 200,000 akiwa academy.
But the petitioners faulted the president for usurping the powers of parliament. They argue that with no laws governing the funding model, it did not have legal basis and should therefore be struck out. The new funding model prescribes that students from vulnerable and extremely needy households receive 100% funding, while the needy and less needy will get 93% government funding, the students bearing 7% of the tuition costs. Educationists have called for the staggering of the implementation of the funding model to allow for streamlining of its processes. Chemutai Goin, Citizen TV, Nairobi.